Firehouse, written by Lori Haskin. Read by me, Madison. Stanley Lamb Chop lived with his mother, his father, and his little brother After. Stanley was 4 feet tall, about a foot wide, and half an inch thick. He had been flat ever since a bulletin board fell on him. Stanley's family found it handy having a flat boy at home, and Stanley didn't mind helping out. Stanley held tools for his father while Mr. Lamb Chop repaired the car. Stanley helped After practice his backflips. Stanley gave Mrs. Lamb Chop a perfect place to roll out pie crust except when he felt ticklish. Stanley made a good stencil too. Hold still, said After. Stanley held his breath as After traced him carefully. Children all over the city were entering a poster contest for fire safety month. I hope we won the trip to the firehouse, said After. Me too, said Stanley. I have always wanted to slide down a pole. The next Monday, a letter arrived. Hey, guess what? Shouted After. Hay is for horses, Mrs. Lamb Chop said. Try to remember that, dear. Sorry, said After. Guess what? Our poster won the contest. We're going to the firehouse on Saturday. Mrs. Lamb Chop clapped. I knew you boys had my talent for art, she said proudly. Stanley and After practiced fire drills all week long. After crawled around the house on his hands and knees. Stanley did the stop, drop, and roll. Mostly the roll. At last Saturday came. The Lamb Chops drove to the firehouse. Welcome, bellowed Chief Abbott. A puppy bounced at his feet. Arf, 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 arf. Don't mind Spark, said the chief. He's still in training. Chief Abbott led the Lamb Chops through the firehouse kitchen. We firefighters cook up some tasty meals, he said. Mr. Lamb Chop got out his camera and took a picture of the pot of chili. Everyone went on to the bunk room. Very nice, said Miss Lamb Chop. Can I see the truck, said After. Of course, said Chief Abbott. He led everyone down to the garage. Stanley was disappointed. He had wanted to get there by pole. Boots and pants lay on the floor. Oh my, said Mrs. Lamb Chop. I could tidy up if you like. Chief Abbott laughed. We leave these out so we could jump into them in an emergency, he said. Neat, said Stanley. Chief Abbott pointed to the letter truck. Climb on up if you like. Wow, said After. The boys scrambled onto the truck. Spark was right behind him. Suddenly, the alarm bell rang. Chief, code 9 on Oak Street, called the firefighter. The chief turned to the Lamb Chops. How would you folk like to come along on a rescue? A rescue? Will it be safe? Asked Miss Lamb Chop. You bet, said Chief Abbott. Code 9 means a cat up a tree. Probably Furball again. Mr. Lamb Chop looked at his rifle. She gave a little nod. Yes! Yelled Stanley and After. Stanley, turn on the siren. After, hit the light, shouted Chief Abbott. My goodness, is that necessary? Asked Miss Lamb Chop. No, said Chief Abbott. It's just more fun this way. The truck raced out the station. Soon they pulled up to a tall tree. A tiny cat shivered at the top. She's pretty high up this time, said Chief Abbott. Spark panted at the chief's feet. All right, let's get her down. 2 firefighters raised the ladder. The Lamb Chops moved out the way. Chief Abbott climbed until Furball was just a few feet away. Good kitty, he said, stretching out his hand. Come here, Furball. Spark started to bark. Arf, arf, arf. For a second, Furball froze. Then she jumped the other way. Furball, cried Chief Abbott. He was too late. Furball was heading to the ground. The lamb chops looked up. Their mouths were open in surprise. All at once, Stanley threw himself onto the grass. Grab my hands, he told his mother. Mr. Lamb Chop grabbed his hands. Grab my feet, he told Ofter, but Ofter didn't move. Hey! Shouted Mrs. Lamb Chop at the top of her lungs. Grab his feet! Ofter blinked. He grabbed Stanley's feet. Stretch, cried Stanley. Ofter and Mrs. Lamb Chop stretched Stanley between them. They were not a second too soon. Boing! Meow! Furball bounced on Stanley's belly, then landed safely on the ground. The fighters started clapping. Ofter and Mrs. Lamb Chop stood Stanley back up. Ofter looked at his mother. Cage for horses, remember? Mrs. Lamb Chop grinned. Good work, Lamb Chops, said Chief Abbott, racing over. How can we ever thank you? Well, said Stanley, there is one thing. Whee!
Hey guys, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe.
The Adventures of Madison